Crossover number 1 by Donny Cates and Geoff Shaw, colors by D. Kniff. This is the highest selling launch issue for Image Comics since Danger Girl back in 1998. And Danger Girl was a Wildstorm book, so that's further historical context. The title page opens with a snarky quote from Frederick Wortham, but it's paralleled against this gem of a quote from Todd McFarlane, which is "Kids love chains." And kind of the initial premise of this book, it hits you with a, really makes you think type of wording. So it asks, who is more real, us or Superman? Because none of us are going to have the same impact as Superman. When we're long dead, Superman is still going to exist. He predates us, and even if humans leave the Earth, DC, Warner, and that corporate conglomerate probably still going to exist, probably going to take Superman to the skies. Even though I'm not really sure how public domain laws should work, but since Mickey Mouse predates Batman and Disney is the media giant conglomerate, I don't think any of these characters will ever be public domain. So the actual story here is that in 2017 in Denver, Colorado, basically a bunch of fictional comic book superheroes and characters just suddenly appeared in the middle of the city, essentially like a crisis type of thing, but also them coming in a crisis thing they were also in the middle of their own crisis, stupid crossover thing. So their little literal comic book reality merges into real reality. And a superhero at a certain point basically puts a giant force field around the entire state of Colorado. And inside the bubble, superheroes and villains and whatever else, and like comic book civilians, just kind of keep doing their thing. They're battling or whatever in there. And our main character here, her name is Ellipses, and she works at a comic book shop. And things like cosplay and comic book stores, they're now considered immoral, and there's like this religious crusade against them. But this shop that she works at, which is possibly, or at least based on its name on the sign, is possibly the last comic store alive that exists, but they only deal in pre-crossover comics because, after that happened, comics changed drastically. Companies change and everything like that. And so there's this anti-superhero, anti-capes and masks type of thing. So it's kind of like illicit substances. And then things take a big twist when there's a kid who they think is about to try and steal some comics. And so they confront the kid, and the kid turns around, and her face is covered in Band-Aid dots because this is a comic book kid, or however you want to describe the semantics, who has escaped from the bubble. And everyone freaks the hell out. Everyone evacuates the shop. Police are being called. Religious fanatics are showing up. And another character named Ryan, his dad is one of these religious fanatics, and his dad caught him with comic books. And so he forces his son to throw a Molotov into the store. So they're all running away. And the kid, this comic book kid, draws the hero that helped her escape from the bubble, that takes people in and out of the bubble. And she draws Superman. It's clearly Superman. Well, that's the final tease. We have references here to Savage Dragon, Batman, Spider-Man. She wears an Invincible shirt, which, there's not really any. Well, I'm sure Kate's had to clear it, but that has way less legal ramifications than some of these other things, which we could potentially see or get teased further. There's a pretty explicit reference to Rawhide Kid. Thor is also referenced. The art from Shaw and Kniff is fucking amazing. They switch between the styles, what they're presenting as the real world, and then these various comic book styles. As far as the story in general, the premise and everything, this isn't like the most original concept in the world, and some of the parts of the story that we have in this first issue lean heavily into certain tropes, like the religious fervor and the oppressed nerds and everything like that. But as far as the general idea of this and kind of what it's trying to say, this is just pure cotton candy to me. This is like the perfect comic book for me.
No, I kind of had a huge smile on my face the minute you got the Wortham quote, and then the Todd Chains quote is like right under it. It's kind of perfect. Like, that just set the tone for it right away. I kind of have this thing about Donny Cates right now, and I think you might agree, but I don't think you've read as much of his work that I have. But in terms of looking at Donny Cates' recent work from about 2018 to now, I don't think there's anyone that really epitomizes the fun factor of a comic book more than Donny Cates. I'm at that point where I can go, Donny Cates equals fun to me. I know I'm guaranteed to have some sort of fun run, and the guy absolutely nails how to have a fun comic book with characters that are engrossing and engaging, while also having these high stakes, totally bombastic, world-shattering catastrophes like level threats that are going on in the background, and really invoke the only, like, this can only happen in a comic book. Like, that really kind of struggle how you would ever depict that in a cartoon or a movie to me. All of his books kind of have that feeling to me right now. And this is kind of that engaged up to 11, but also still remaining to have really kind of great peaceful moments of characters with, you know, Ellie trying to comfort the kid, is like all this shit's kind of crazy going around behind it. And then like Geoff Shaw and Knief's art here is just simply amazing. Like this, yeah, like this is one of the best books of the week, and totally lived up to the hype. It's our cool cover Friday for the week. I love the cover too. Like I really enjoyed this, and I'm wondering how long this is going to go. I don't know if this is a 6 issue or a 12 issue. I mean, definitely it's a mini series, right? But, you know, also probably, you know, already 1 issue in, I'm already primed for, like, this can be a sequel here. This is definitely, you know, it's a win for Image, it's a win for Donny Cates, it's a win for Geoff Shaw, D. Knief, everyone involved here. And the fact that, I don't know if you read Donny Cates', you know, little letter write-up in the back of this, but it seems like this is an idea that a lot of people are sold on, and he's being given a lot of leeway by other companies to kind of get away with what he can put and throw in here. Because, like, the first kind of character we see on the page is, like, it's Captain Marvel, but it's just a blue suit instead of a red suit. Like, it seems like they're letting this whole team and crew here play around and have fun with not having, you know, too much leeway crackdown on them, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a gray area. Look, I'm 100% certain that Marvel is not going to allow him to show Spider-Man on the page. And DC is not going to allow him to show Superman, despite what this final page teases. I can say that for certain. That's just the way it works legally, especially with both those companies, you know, owned by giant corporations. Theoretically, you know, like, he could have, I don't even know what the equivalent character is, but, like, I could imagine, you know, Valiant saying, like, yeah, sure, put Ninjak on the page, you know, market for us a bit. But I don't imagine he's doing that either. I think we'll see a lot of more subtle stuff, and it's interesting. And I haven't been keeping up with this book either, but he kind of did like a soft version of this in Thor, right? Isn't there? There's a reference in Thor where there's a reference to Superman, I believe, or he references like the DC universe being destroyed, right? And then he kind of did something, similarly wacky. But an actual legitimate authorized crossover with the Fortnite stuff. But yeah, I'm not even certain. Like, I don't know. I think if he wants to, you know, tell a defined, definitive, you know, contained story, it could definitely be a miniseries. But I think there's a lot of room in this premise that he could make this a long-lasting ongoing. Because you think once we get into that bubble where we see more characters coming out of that bubble, there's so many stories there, and I think there are certain teases with Ellipses, the main character here, because she talks about, it's not implied she's a superhero or anything like that, and she's seemingly a normal human, but she was in that bubble and she escaped that bubble. Her family's trapped in the bubble, assuming they're still alive. So I think there's a lot of nuggets that he can dig into here. And I could definitely see this going more than 5, 6, even 12 issues.